What if everything you knew about Dungeons and Dragons was about to get flipped completely upside down? What if the monsters, the creatures you've been slaying, running from, and rolling dice to defeat for decades, what if they were the heroes now? Because that's exactly what's happening. And trust me, this changes everything. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and oh boy, do we have something spicy for you today. If you are a Dungeons and Dragons fan, casual or hardcore, you need to stop whatever you're doing right now, because the folks over at the D&D universe just dropped a bombshell announcement that has the entire fandom absolutely losing their minds. A brand new 4-part comic book series has just been announced, and it's called Dungeons and Dragons: Total Party Killers. Now, for those of you who don't know what total party kill means in the D&D world, it's basically the most catastrophic thing that can happen to your adventuring party. It means everyone dies. The whole team. Wiped out. Game over. TPK. It's the nightmare scenario every dungeon master secretly dreams about and every player desperately fears. So right from the title alone, we already know this series isn't playing around. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the twist in this story isn't just about heroes dying. Oh no, the twist is about who is doing the adventuring in the first place. This isn't your typical paladin leads the charge kind of story. This isn't your classic band of elves and dwarves exploring ancient ruins. No. This time around, the adventuring party is the monsters. Let that sink in for a second. The monsters are the heroes. And we're going to break down everything about this series. What it means for the franchise, why fans are absolutely electric about it, and why this could be one of the most creative reinventions in the entire history of Dungeons & Dragons. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive deep into the series itself, let's take a quick step back, because it's actually really important to understand just how massive the Dungeons & Dragons brand has become in recent years. Because here's the thing, for a long time, D&D was considered a niche hobby. Something your nerdy uncle did in a basement in the 1980s. Something you might have seen referenced in Stranger Things, which, by the way, did wonders for bringing the game back into public conversation, but it was still largely seen as a gamer thing, a subculture thing. And then everything changed. Let's start with the movie. In 2023, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves hit theaters, and it absolutely crushed expectations. Critics loved it. Audiences loved it. It had heart, humor, stunning action, and it treated the source material with genuine respect and creativity. It grossed over $200 million worldwide, and more importantly, it proved that Dungeons & Dragons could work brilliantly as mainstream entertainment. Then you've got The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime Video, an animated series based on the actual play campaign by Critical Role, and that show has been an absolute phenomenon. Sharp writing, incredible voice acting, mature storytelling, and an emotional depth that completely shattered the stereotype that D&D adaptations have to be kiddie content. And then there's The Mighty Nein, another Critical Role campaign that's been adapted and has further expanded the universe's storytelling potential. These projects together have created an entirely new generation of D&D fans who discovered the game through the media, not the other way around. But perhaps the most exciting thing on the horizon? Netflix. The Forgotten Realms series, an upcoming live-action Netflix adaptation set directly in the iconic D&D universe, which has fans absolutely salivating with anticipation. We're talking about Forgotten Realms, one of the most beloved settings in all of fantasy fiction, getting the big-budget streaming treatment. The point is, Dungeons & Dragons is no longer a niche. It is a full-blown cultural phenomenon. And with that level of mainstream attention comes something really exciting: creative experimentation. People aren't just happy getting more of the same. They want to push the boundaries. They want to explore new corners of this universe in ways that have never been done before. And Total Party Killers? This is exactly that kind of bold, boundary-pushing storytelling. Okay, so let's talk about how Dungeons & Dragons normally works, because understanding the formula is what makes breaking it so deliciously exciting. In a traditional D&D story, whether it's a tabletop campaign, a novel, an animated show, or a movie, the structure is pretty well established. You've got your adventuring party, a group of heroes, usually a ragtag mix of different character classes, who come together for a common goal. Maybe they're hired to retrieve a stolen artifact. Maybe they're trying to stop a world-ending villain. Maybe they're just broke and in desperate need of coin, wandering from town to town, taking whatever jobs they can find. The classic character classes are some of the most iconic in all of fantasy fiction. You've got your paladin, the holy warrior, bound by an oath, wielding divine power like a walking instrument of justice. You've got your ranger, the wilderness expert, tracker, survivalist, bow in hand and beast companion at their side. There's the fighter, raw strength, tactical brilliance, the backbone of any party. The warlock, who made a dark pact with some eldritch entity in exchange for terrifying magical power. And of course, the beloved bard, charismatic, cunning, somehow managing to make everything work through sheer confidence and impeccable timing. Then you've got the races. Humans, elves, dwarves, tieflings, dragonborn, each bringing their own cultural background and innate abilities to the team dynamic. And the goal? Usually pretty clear. Explore dangerous dungeons. Fight monsters. Collect treasure. Save the world. Rinse and repeat. Now, that formula works. It's worked for 50 years. It is the heartbeat of the entire genre of fantasy role-playing. It has produced some of the most beloved stories in the history of fiction. But here's the question that Total Party Killers dares to ask. What happens when you stand that formula on its head? What happens when the monsters aren't the obstacles to be overcome, but the protagonists of the story? Okay, here we go. Dungeons and Dragons. Total Party Killers doesn't just tweak the traditional formula, it obliterates it. Instead of a band of heroes forming a party to raid a dungeon and defeat the monsters within, this story follows the monsters themselves as they form their own adventuring party. The creatures, the beasts, the things that go bump in the dungeon night, the entities that players have been rolling to defeat since the very first edition of D&D. They're the main characters now. And this isn't played for pure comedy or parody, though we can absolutely expect some incredible moments of darkly absurd humor given the premise. This is a genuine story, a story told from a perspective we almost never get to see in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. Think about it. In every campaign you've ever played, in every story you've ever watched, the monsters are always the antagonists. They're always the obstacle. They're the things you roll initiative against. They're the things described in the monster manual as dangerous, feral, malevolent, or simply in the way. But what if they have their own goals, their own fears, their own desires for something better? What if the dungeon isn't just a lair, but a home? That is the question this series is asking. And honestly, it might be the most fascinating question anyone has ever asked in a D&D story. Now let's talk about the actual lineup, because the team of monsters assembled for this story is absolutely iconic. First up, the lycanthrope, a creature cursed with the ability to transform between humanoid and beast form, most famously the werewolf. Lycanthropes exist in this terrifying space between man and monster, and that duality makes them incredibly compelling characters. The internal struggle of controlling a beast within, that's rich, dramatic storytelling territory. Then there's the gelatinous cube. And okay, if you know D&D, you know the gelatinous cube, and you know exactly why including it in a heroic party is both hilarious and brilliant. This is literally a transparent, cube-shaped mass of acidic jelly that silently slides through dungeon corridors, dissolving anything it touches. It is one of the most bizarre and beloved creatures in all of D&D lore, giving it agency and a role in a heroic party. That's inspired. Next, the mind flayer, also known as illithids. These tentacled, brain-devouring aberrations are among the most terrifying and intellectually formidable creatures in the entire D&D universe. They are ancient, calculating, and utterly alien in their thinking, which makes them perfect for a story that wants to challenge what heroism even looks like. Then we have the Death Knight, a fallen paladin, resurrected as an undead warrior of catastrophic power. Death Knights are tragic figures by their very nature. They were once noble, once bound by sacred oaths, and now cursed to walk the line between life and death, carrying the weight of whatever fall from grace destroyed them in the first place. They are practically begging to be given a redemption arc. And finally, the one that might have stolen the entire internet's heart the moment the announcement dropped, the baby beholder. Yes, a baby beholder. For the uninitiated, beholders are among the most iconic and terrifying monsters in all of D&D. They're these massive, floating, spherical creatures covered in ice stalks, each one capable of firing a different devastating magical ray. They are vain, paranoid, supremely intelligent, and absolutely deadly. And now we got a baby one. On a hero team. The internet is not okay, and honestly, neither am I. That's adorable, and I am fully on board at S.O. What actually brings this unlikely team of monsters together? What's the story? Here's the setup, and it is genuinely compelling. There is a wizard named Custos, and Custos has died. Now, Custos wasn't just any wizard. He was the master of a dungeon, and these monsters were his. They served him. They were bound to him by magic, kept within the walls of his dungeon as its guardians and inhabitants. But now Custos is gone, and with the wizard's death, the dungeon is suddenly vulnerable. It's no longer protected by the power of its master. And that means treasure hunters, adventurers, glory seekers, looters are going to start showing up very, very soon. So now our monsters face a twofold crisis. One, they need to protect the dungeon from being ransacked by these would-be heroes. Two, and this is the really juicy part, they want freedom from their magical imprisonment. They've been bound to this dungeon by Custos's magic. And with him dead, there might finally be a way out. But they can't do it alone. They need someone to help break that binding. So what do? They form a party. They work together. And they hatch a plan to trick someone into freeing them, while simultaneously defending everything they've ever known. It is literally a heist story meets a dungeon crawl, told completely from the perspective of the monsters. That is genuinely brilliant storytelling. I cannot overstate how fresh and exciting this premise is. Here's why this matters beyond just being a cool comic book concept. Dungeons and Dragons as a universe is enormous. The lore is so deep, so rich, so layered with thousands of years of in-world history, that there are literally infinite stories to be told within it. But for most of its existence, in games, books, films, and shows, the storytelling has defaulted to one perspective, the hero's perspective. The adventurers, the chosen ones, the party marching forward into the dark. And that's wonderful. That perspective gave us everything we love about the franchise. But Total Party Killers is doing something that great storytelling has always done when a genre gets comfortable. It's asking who else is in the room. It's the same creative instinct that gave us stories told from the villain's point of view. That gave us fairy tale retellings from the witch's perspective. That gave us war stories from the ground level instead of the command room. When you shift the camera, when you change whose eyes you're seeing the world through, the entire universe suddenly looks different, richer, more complex, more human. Ironically, even when the characters are anything but. And there's something deeply resonant about these particular monsters. The Death Knight, haunted by a fall from grace. The lycanthrope, struggling with what they are. The mind flayer, perceiving the world in a way no one else can understand. These are characters with internal worlds, with stories, with wounds. That's what great storytelling does. It finds the humanity in the inhuman. Now let's talk about the fandom, because the reaction to this announcement has been electric. Across social media, D&D communities, comic book forums, and tabletop gaming spaces, fans have been absolutely buzzing about Total Party Killers. The concept has been called genius, long overdue, and exactly what the franchise needs right now. And you can see why. This is the kind of concept that doesn't just tell a new story. It expands what's possible within the universe. It opens a door. Imagine the tabletop campaigns this could inspire. Dungeon masters already running evil party campaigns, where players play as monsters or villains, are going to have an entirely new framework to work from. New sourcebook potential, new character options, new ways of thinking about the monsters in the monster manual as more than just stat blocks. And if Total Party Killers performs well as a comic series, the implications for future adaptations could be massive. an animated special, a chapter in the Netflix series, a spin-off film. The monster's eye view of the D&D universe is genuinely uncharted cinematic territory. The seed being planted here is small, but it could grow into something enormous. Here's where we land, folks. Dungeons and Dragons. Total Party Killers is not just a comic book series. It is a statement. It is proof that after 50 years, this universe still has room to surprise us, still has the capacity to flip the script, literally, and make us see a familiar world with completely fresh eyes. The monsters are the heroes now. The dungeon is worth saving. And the most dangerous adventuring party in the Forgotten Realms isn't carrying torches and swords. It's made of tentacles, teeth, acid, and one absolutely adorable baby beholder. I am here for it. I'm buckled in and ready to roll. But now I want to hear from you. Would you read a D&D story told entirely from the monster's perspective? Which member of the Total Party Killers are you most excited about? The tragic Death Knight, the terrifying Mind Flayer, or honestly, let's be real, is it the baby beholder? Because it's the baby beholder, isn't it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you'd play a campaign as a monster party. Let me know if you think this kind of reinvention is exactly what D&D needs, or if you're a purist who wants to keep the heroes as heroes. Either way, the dice have been rolled. The party has been formed. And in Total Party Killers, the monsters are just getting started. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a breakdown like this one. We're going to be covering every update on this series as it drops, issue by issue, so you're going to want to stay close. Until next time, stay nerdy, stay curious, and for the love of all the gods in the Forgotten Realms, watch your back in the dungeon.